Hello guys, welcome back to another Power Rankings, this time for October 18th. In this video, of course, I'm going to go through every single team, all 31 teams, and rank where I see them in the NHL right now. Now, as I said before, these power rankings, this is based off of momentum. Really, the best teams playing right now will be higher up in the power rankings than teams that might have a good record but are playing lower. So this is really based on momentum. It's really based on how well these teams are playing. Now, of course, this is the second power rankings that I've done on the channel so far on the season so far, and I was surprised by how much shifting there was, especially in the middle area where there was teams that were jumping up a lot, teams that I didn't expect to do all that well, that did fantastic in the power rankings, and you'll see that in the video, of course, but there was a lot of surprises that when I was making this, I didn't really believe. But without further ado, I have at number 31 the Detroit Red Wings, one of the few teams that has still not gotten a win on the season, and they've played 6 games right now. They were 30th last week in the power rankings, and of course -1 on here. I feel like they had to be numbers, or they had to be last place with an 0-4-2 record. They just played abysmal, and while there has been some close games, they played like I expected them to have played. I expected them to be the worst team in the league. That was my prediction, and so far it's looking pretty good. At number 30, I have the Arizona Coyotes with a 1-4-0 record. That's -4 from last week. And the Arizona Coyotes, they're a team that I predicted to make the playoffs. I know it was a hot take, but I expected them to make the playoffs. And so far this season, they've just been disappointing me left and right. While I don't think that they've been a bad team, I feel like they probably should have gotten more wins at this point. They just have not been able to get those wins. They've not been able to get going. And while I think that they've played pretty decent, they played some tough teams, but they've just not been able to get the wins at times. And so far, of course, that's been the downfall for them. At number 29, I have the New York Rangers. Now, they were last place last week, but they've been playing a little bit better since then. They now have a 2-4-1 record. They're a +2 from last week. Still not in the greatest position again at number 29. It's not great for them, but they have been getting a little bit better. Of course, they got a couple of wins this last week, so that will propel them a little bit. But they've played a lot of games so far, one of the most games in the league, and with the New York Rangers, I didn't expect them to be a very good team either. So far, this start has not really been surprising from them. At number 28, I have the St. Louis Blues. They now have a 1-3-2 record, a -2 from last week's power rankings, and to me, they just continue to disappoint me pretty much every single week, every single game, it seems like. Now, I'm no St. Louis Blues fan, but I predicted them to make the playoffs. I predicted them to be a pretty good team there, and so far, they've shown none of that. So the offense has just not been gelling whatsoever. Jake Allen has not been good enough, and that defense has been pretty meh so far. And so far for St. Louis, it's been disappointing after some disappointment. It's been terrible for them, and of course not the start that they envisioned. At number 27, I have the New York Islanders. They now have a 2-3-0 record, -3 from last week, and I never really expected New York Islanders to be all that great. I expected them to be last in the Metropolitan Division. I didn't expect them to have a very successful season, and so far it's been weird. There's been games that I've been impressed with them, but also games that I haven't seen enough from them. Really, it's been a wishy-washy season for them so far, and yes, it is early, but right now, I just, as a whole, have not been impressed by them. But at number 26, I have the Minnesota Wild. They're now at a 2-2-2 record, a +3 from last week. And again, they've been getting some more wins here in the last week. They've been able to get into overtime a couple of times to now have an even record. But I've just not seen the effort that I needed to from them. I don't think they really deserve to win that Arizona game. There have been some okay games on their part, but I just have not liked the effort on their parts. I've just not liked the play style that they've had so far. I don't know if it's going to be really sustainable for them. While they have been getting some points now, and they're somewhat in that middle area for the Central Division, they could still make the playoffs, but right now there are some red flags that I think will continue throughout the season that will ultimately lead to their demise. At number 25, I have the Los Angeles Kings. They're now at a 2-3-1 record, a -4 from last week. And to me, it's just been a simple factor of they've looked like the slow team that I predicted them to be. Now, I predicted them to miss the playoffs, and so far, it's not looking the greatest for them. Jonathan Quick, of course, is out on IR. Jack Campbell has been iffy so far, so that is a problem for them. Not having their number 1 goaltender is obviously a big problem there. But their defense has been okay. Their offense, they've just been not able to score, especially on the power play, where they're still over on the power play. They have not scored a power play goal so far, so for that, I think they are obviously down. And they haven't looked terrible so far. They're not one of the dumpster teams, but I've just not liked what I've seen from them. So far, it's just not looked good. At number 24, I have the Florida Panthers. Now, they're at an 0-2 record, a -8 from last week. And last week, they only played one game from the season when I made that video, so I had no real games to judge them on. But now, they're still winless somehow throughout the season, and it's not looking the greatest to start out. Now, I predicted the Florida Panthers to be an excellent playoff team to get 30 in the Atlantic Division, and so far, they've just been disappointing and depressing so far. And for Florida, they need to get some wins now more than ever. Again, they have Luongo out. Now James Reimer's in net. It hasn't been the most successful venture ever. And for Florida, you got to get those wins someday. And right now, they're still over. So I had to put them a little bit lower on this list because of that. And so far, they just not impressed me whatsoever. At number 23, I have the Pittsburgh Penguins. They now have a 2-1-2 record. They're a -8 from last week. And it's plain and simple. While they still have a good record so far, I've just not liked what I've seen from them, just in their style of play and how they played. The Pittsburgh Penguins are still a great offensive team. We've seen that so far. But their defense has been absolutely atrocious. And having Justin Schultz out is a huge blow to that defense. And of course, having Matt Murray out with concussion is also a huge blow. I don't know how long he'll be out still, but he's looking to return in the next couple of weeks, so that's good for Pittsburgh. But that defense is still a big problem. The offense, of course, is still the Pittsburgh Penguins' offense, and it still is their biggest strength. So it'll continue to play well. But the defense is just allowing too many shots, too many goals, and so far I've just not liked what I've seen for Pittsburgh to sustain that success. It's looking iffy right now. At number 22, I have the Vegas Golden Knights. They now have a 3-4-0 record. They're a -5 from last week, but it could have been a lot worse if they hadn't won 2 in a row. Right now, they're on a 2-0 streak when it comes to their record, and right now they're looking to play a little bit better. They had that great game against Buffalo, and so far, it has been a rough season for Vegas, but they're starting to get back on that climb. Now, for Vegas, they need to start doing it now because, of course, that Pacific Division can get a little bit tight sometimes. But for Vegas, it has been a rough start so far, and not the start that people were expecting, but they are starting to get the wins slowly but surely, and in my power rankings, they're just slowly starting to climb. At number 21, I have the Edmonton Oilers. They've started their season 2-2-0. They're up 7 points from last week, and I've liked what I've seen from them. They're one of the few teams that's not played a lot of games, so it's hard to get to judge them on their small sample size so far. But I really liked what they did in that Winnipeg game, coming down from a 4-1 deficit in the third period to win it in overtime. I really liked that game, and I really liked what the Edmonton Oilers were doing in that game. So that was a fun one to watch, and I feel like with the Edmonton Oilers, they're starting to find a little bit of a groove offensively, and of course Connor McDavid being a beast will definitely help that. But if Edmonton can find a groove now after, of course, having that 0-2 start, that'll be great for them, and they could surprisingly go up in these standings, go up in these power rankings sooner than later, and I feel like Edmonton has potential to be a decent team. At number 20, I have the Buffalo Sabres. They're now at a 3-3-0 record. They were in the same spot at number 20 last week, so no difference for them. But I have liked what I've seen from them. Carter Hutton has looked very, very good for the first 6 games. I've liked what I've seen from him. The offense, it's been shaky, it's been inconsistent, but from what I've seen from Buffalo Sabres games that I've been watching, they've looked pretty solid. Jeff Skinner, if he can find his groove again, will be very, very good for the Buffalo Sabres. Rasmus Dahlin has looked pretty solid. I've been impressed with Casey Middleton. Of course, Jack Eichel is an amazing player. So for Buffalo, I feel like they have potential. I didn't expect them to make the playoffs, but I did expect them to be a decent team, and so far, it's been that way somewhat. Now, of course, they're going to have to get some wins sooner or later, but right now, it's been okay. But Buffalo, of course, needs to improve in some key areas. At number 19, I have the Ottawa Senators. Now, this one was, as I said, I already mentioned in the beginning of the video, this one was a one that surprised me. Now, they're at a 3-2-1 record right now. They're a +6 from last week, and I've actually liked what I've seen from the Ottawa Senators. Now, Brady Tkachuk, we just learned that he was out for a month, that he's out for a month now, which is a huge blow to the Ottawa Senators, but still, from the games that I played, they played pretty decent. I've loved what Duchesne has been cooking up so far this season. Some of their defensemen like Wideman and Shabbat have been playing fantastic so far. And while I don't think that this record is sustainable for Ottawa, I think that they will come down to earth eventually, of course. I feel like right now I'm going to give them a little bit of credit for how well they've played to start the season. They've been decent, and I don't think a lot of people predicted that. At number 18, I have the Philadelphia Flyers, good old Gritty's club. Now, they're right now at a 3-3-0 record, a +1 from last week, but they've never really moved too much in my power rankings so far, just because they've been in the same situation as they were last week. I've not been impressed from them on the goaltending side of things. Elliott had an okay start to the season, but then he kind of fell off a little bit. The defense has been okay, the offense has been pretty solid, but they've just been inconsistent, and they've looked good at times, they've looked terrible at times, namely that game versus San Jose. But to me, they've just been a weird spot to where I can't really judge them too much just because of how inconsistent they have been to start out the season. At number 17, I have the Vancouver Canucks, and yes, it surprises me as much as it surprises you. Right now, they're at a 4-2-0 record. They're up 6 spots from last week, and they've been playing good. Of course, with Elias Pettersson out, they did win that game against Pittsburgh, and they played pretty well in that game. I liked their effort, and I liked, of course, that Brock Besser overtime snipe, that beauty against Casey Smith. For the Vancouver Canucks, they've started out well. This is pretty much what happened last season. They started out well. They kind of teetered off towards the middle part of the season, and I feel like that's what's going to happen here. But for Vancouver Canucks fans, it's great to see a great start from them, and of course the great start from Elias Pettersson, but you should like it while it lasts, because for the Vancouver Canucks, I'm not sure it will. At number 16, I have the Dallas Stars at a 3-3-0 record. Now, as a Dallas Stars fan, it's been a pretty disappointing week on my end. They've dropped 8 spots from last week. They looked pretty good in their opening week, I'm going to be honest here, but that game versus Ottawa was a huge wake-up call, but then that game versus New Jersey was just the same thing, and to me, Dallas needs to change a little bit in their defensive end, and of course, offense needs to improve as well. But for Dallas, that first week looked pretty good, but those 2 games against both Ottawa and New Jersey really kicked it down for me. As a Dallas Stars fan, it sucks to see, but changes were needed. At number 15, I have the Colorado Avalanche. They're now at a 3-1-2 record. They're -1 from last week. I think they're on a 2-game losing streak, something like that. But the past week, it wasn't as successful as the first week, and while I still think Colorado Avalanche will be a decent team, I did expect them to miss the playoffs. So far, they still have a pretty decent record. I mean, 3-1-2 is very, very solid, so I expect them to be solid again this next week. But from what I've seen, it's been wishy-washy. In the last couple of games, they have lost a few, so I'm going to bump them down just a little bit, just a teeny bit. At number 14, I have the Columbus Blue Jackets. They're right now at a 3-2-0 record, a -2 from last week. Now, I don't think they've played a lot of games in this past week, so I haven't gotten a huge sample size from them from the week before, but they've still played a pretty decent team so far. Again, I have a lot of hope in this team. I predict them to make the Eastern Conference Finals, so I obviously have a lot of hope in them, and having Seth Jones out for the first month is a huge blow to them, but so far, they've been okay. They've been able to recoup that loss a little bit, and so far, it's looked pretty good. At number 13, I have the Montreal Canadiens and a 4-1-1 record. They are up 5 points from last week, and depending on who you talk to, the Montreal Canadiens could be a top 5 team in the league right now. It's just depending on who you talk to. Some people have a lot of belief in them, and the Montreal Canadiens, I will give them credit, have played pretty well this season, and so far, 4-1-1 record. They beat some teams that, have playoff hopes. I mean, the Pittsburgh Penguins, they beat them 2 times this season so far, so it's not like they're winning against slouch teams here. But Montreal Canadiens, they've played well. They've been a fast team. They've been an energetic team. And of course, having some talent, having some youth, mostly Kotkaniemi, some of that has worked very well for them. And I think, honestly, all things have gone right. Now, is that sustainable for Montreal? Who knows? But so far, it's been so good. At number 12, I have the San Jose Sharks at a 2-3-1 record, a -5 from last week, and for the team that I predicted to win the President's Trophy, it hasn't been very successful so far for them. And this past week, it's just been more of the same. Again, they've just not been able to get on a roll. It seems like their power play has been kind of iffy, and goaltending has not been where I pegged it to be. Of course, I predicted Martin Jones to win the Vezina Trophy. So far, that's not looking very good. But for the San Jose Sharks, I feel like it's just not quite gelling like they should have so far. And again, while it is still early in the season, right now there is some cause for concern in San Jose. Now, I still think they're a playoff team, and I think they're still a for sure playoff team, but so far it is early, but so far it hasn't been good enough to where San Jose predicted it as to be. Again, with Erik Karlsson coming on your team, they had a lot of expectations, but so far they haven't lived up to it. At number 11, I have the Boston Bruins. They're at a 4-2-0 record. At the same position they were last week. They're last week at number 11, so it's the same thing here. No movements, no downgrades, but no upgrades either. And the Boston Bruins, it was mostly because of that game versus Calgary, where I just did not like what I was seeing. You know, it just was not the greatest defensive effort. Tuukka Rask looked terrible, and to me, there's a whole goaltending situation in Boston. While they still have a good record at 4-2, I think it's pretty much been carried by the offense so far, and the goaltending has serious question marks. I mean, Tuukka Rask, while healthy, he's been pretty atrocious so far, while Yaroslav Halak has somehow been a pretty decent goaltender back there for Tuukka Rask, and there's going to be a little bit of debate here, who gets that starting job right now. Tuukka Rask is on the outside out because he's really not played well at all so far. For Boston, they got some tricky decisions to make. At number 10, I have the Calgary Flames. Now they're at a 4-2-0 record, a -1 from last week, but to me, it's pretty much been the same thing for them. I've liked what I've seen from them so far with their offense. It's been clicking so far. The goaltending has been okay. It's been inconsistent, but it has been okay as a whole. The defense is still pretty solid back there. And I mean, I like the Calgary Flames on paper. It's all about making the playoffs, and of course, it still is early for them. Right now, it's all about having that offense click, have that defense click, and of course, getting the goaltending that they need. Right now for Calgary, they've looked good so far, and I'm hoping that can continue, hopefully throughout the playoffs as well, and hopefully they have a solid run. At number 9, I have the Anaheim Ducks, or should I say John Gibson's team, pretty much at this point. They're now at a 5-1-1 record, a +4 from last week, and the more and more Anaheim plays, the more they just will not die. The more Anaheim just goes for the seasons, they just cannot die. They will never, never die, and John Gibson will make sure that that doesn't happen. John Gibson has been my heart's candidate. He is my heart candidate right now for how well he's played. He's just been absolutely phenomenal, and I think right now he's one of the heart contenders. I think right now he's easily the best and the favorite, but right now it's pretty much just been John Gibson's team, and so far he's been carrying them. So while I don't know if that's sustainable, John Gibson is pretty much the only reason that the Anaheim Ducks are this high. At number 8, I have the Carolina Hurricanes, Raleigh, and so far this past week it's been okay for them. They've got a couple of losses. They come back down to earth a little bit, but they've still been a pretty decent team. Right now they're at a 4-2-1 record. They are -2 from last week, but they're still at a solid week last week. They did have 2 straight losses, and going into this next week is going to be a little bit of a challenge for them, but I've loved what I've seen from Carolina so far. Their effort has been astounding. They've had so many shots on goal, which I like to see, and so far the talent has been there, the effort has been there, and a lot of things are going right for Carolina now. Again, they still have made the playoffs, it still is very early, but their offense is definitely clicking, the defense is definitely clicking, the goaltending, it's iffy, but if they can find that, Carolina's going to be a very, very good team, and they've shown that already. At number 7, I have the Chicago Blackhawks. Now, they're at a 3-0-2 record right now. They were +3 from last week, and it's been a pretty good week for them. They've finally found a little bit of goaltending. Cam Ward has been a little bit better for them, and of course, they still don't have a regulation loss, so far they've had an excellent season. The offense is back and better than ever. I mean, Jonathan Toews is feeling like 2011 Jonathan Toews again, and Patrick Kane still playing fantastic. Alex DeBrincat has been straight money, and guys like Schmaltz are also chipping in. And they did it without Brennan Saad, too. So right now, Chicago Blackhawks are rolling, and offensively, they're pretty much carrying the team. And if they can find some goaltending, by the way, Corey Crawford should be back in the next couple of weeks, which is huge for Chicago. At number 6, I have the Winnipeg Jets. They're right now at a 3-2-1 record, a -3 from last week. And there's been some games that I liked from them, but also some games that I've just not been impressed by them. Now, there were some games that I liked. Of course, that Carolina game was iffy. That Oilers game was iffy. The defense wasn't the greatest there, but to me, I think Winnipeg is still a very, very good team, and they've shown that so far in the NHL standings. Last year, they showed it, and this year, I think they will start to see it. Now, again, it is still early. They're not playing the Central Division by any means, but they still got a decent record, and right now, things are still looking great for Winnipeg, whether or not they have a great start or not. At number 5, I have the Washington Capitals. Last week, they were number 1. This time, they kind of fall back a little bit, but they're right now at a 3-2-1 record, a -4 from last week. I like what I've seen, but I've also not liked what I've seen. There's been some weird defensive efforts. There's been some weird games on their part, but I think overall, it's still been a very, very good season from them. That New York Rangers game gave me a little bit of a scare. Of course, the Rangers coming back. I think the Capitals ended up winning that in overtime, but right now, it's still looking great for Washington, of course, being the Stanley Cup winners a year ago, but they did fall a little bit in the standings, and in my power rankings, they did fall a little bit. So, of course, there's a team taking them over, which we'll get into, but Washington still has a decent record on the season. Of course, they're still a great team. At number 4, I have the New Jersey Devils at a 4-0 record. Now, they are by far the biggest jump in the positive for sure. They jumped 18 spots from last season, or last week. And last week, they only played one game. They'd won that, so I didn't know where to really judge New Jersey, but they played 3 other games now, and they've won all of them, having an undefeated record so far. So, for me, I had to put New Jersey this high just because of how well they've been playing so far. And while they might come back down to earth, as I expect them to be, so far they've had a great start to the season, and you can't deny that. They played fantastic to start out. At number 3, I have the Tampa Bay Lightning. Now, they're at a 3-1-0 record. They haven't played as many games as some other teams, but they've still looked pretty solid. They are a +2 from last week. And again, Tampa Bay is one of my favorite teams, of course, with the Haddock, as I'm wearing right now. But Tampa Bay has played very well in last week, I feel. And while they haven't played as many games as other teams, they have looked pretty impressive from what they played. Of course, that game versus Columbus was just an absolute slaughter. And from what I've seen so far, Tampa is still back, and they're still one of the best teams in the NHL. Especially offensively, where they've been killing it. Now, we expect them to be killing it offensively, so that's no surprise, but their record so far has been very, very good. And while it is still early, right now, they've been making the most of that. At number 2, I have the Nashville Predators. Right now, they're at a 5-1-0 record. They've looked fantastic in the past week. They're up 2 spots from last week, and I've been pretty impressed from what they've been able to do. Goaltending-wise, looked fantastic from them so far. Defensive and offensively, this looked fantastic. That's what we expected from Nashville this year, and so far they're giving it to us. They've looked great so far, and while they haven't had the hardest opponents in the world, they've been able to make the most of it, and right now get off to a very, very hot start. Now, for the number 1 team in the power rankings for October 18th, 2018, I got the Toronto Maple Leafs, and I say that, I made it suspenseful because the Toronto Maple Leafs are number 1 in the power rankings, which just blows my mind. For what they've been able to do so far, they definitely deserve it. Now, right now, they're at a 6-1-0 record. They're 1 spot above from last week, where they were number 2, but so far, they think they've deserved it. So, even though there's been some concerns about defense and goaltending, I really liked how they played against LA and how Garrett Sparks played as well. So right now, while Frederik Andersen is day-to-day with a knee, I feel like Garrett Sparks is a good plug for that position. And for Toronto, so far, I feel like they've been the best team. Offensively, there's no doubt about it. Defensively, there's been some concerns. In goaltending, there has been some concerns. But offensively, it's hands down been the Toronto Maple Leafs, and they've been the best by far. And I feel like that'll continue for a while to where they ultimately drop off a little bit. But right now, I think they deserve to be the number 1 team, especially in my power rankings. But as I said before in the beginning of the video, there was a lot of change for this week's power rankings just because we're so early into the season. And this is only the 2nd video of the power rankings that will probably be going up every single week for the rest of the year, which is going to be a lot of fun. And of course, with that, I'm hoping that you guys stick around for the ride. But from my power rankings, I also want to hear from you guys. Of course, let me know what do you think about my rankings today. What do you think about me ranking the Toronto Maple Leafs number 1? What do you think about me ranking the Detroit Red Wings number last? And everything in between. Of course, let me know what your power rankings are for this week's in the NHL. I'd love to hear it. And of course, seeing you guys' lists is the best part about it. But that's what it for today, guys. If you guys enjoy these power rankings, make sure to like and subscribe if you haven't already. And again, tell me down below what do you think about my rankings and what are your rankings for October 18th, 2018. I'll see you guys later. Goodbye.